G'day. Today it's all about cats with a certificate in basic animal care science. I'm talking with project manager Sue Kelly. How are you, Sue?
Good, thanks. And
Great,
you?
very good.
Good.
Can you tell us a wee bit about the course?
Well, the cat course is basically going to run through breeds of cats, types of cats, characteristics of cats, as well as basic care, vaccinations, parasites, and what to feed your cat. So.
Sounds all very exciting if you're into cats.
Yeah, and even if you're not, you'll learn a lot.
Yes.
So.
Can you start by telling us a bit of a brief outline of cats, a bit of their background?
Well, a bit of the background is cats are quite different to dogs, for example, in that they domesticated themselves.
Oh.
They, you know, man used to domesticate dogs, but cats in the Pharaoh's days decided, oh, these grain barns, when the barns were made, and there were a lot of rodents in there. So they came from the wild into the sheds because it was easy food, easy to catch the food. And then they, because of, when we see later how cats move, they look quite spiritual. So they then became companions in pharaohs, as well as high priests and things, and you'll find them in tombs embalmed with pharaohs from thousands of years ago. And then in their history, they had a bit of a dark patch in the Middle Ages where witches were seen to be cats reincarnate into witches. So we had that period where cats were basically almost wiped out in Europe. And then that's when all the plagues and all the illnesses started coming through. But luckily for the cat, they survived and they are our pets today.
Gee, they've had a pretty colourful past,
haven't they? And that's a brief
they?
history, yeah.
I'd like to hear a bit more about it sometime.
Yeah.
I can hear your cat meowing in the zoo room.
Yeah, he's. I think he's anxious for us to get there.
Shall we go in then and see him?
Yep, sounds good.
So what's the zoo room used for?
It's our practical handling room, and this is where the veterinary nursing students get their practical experience and assist the vet with surgeries.
Very good. So how many different sorts of animals do you have in here?
Mainly cats and dogs, and occasionally birds in here.
What's the name of this cat?
This is Skabenga, and which is Zulu for rat bag, and he's just come in today.
That's a pretty lucky cat sitting on that flash couch.
Yeah, this is his bed at home, so he's pretty lucky.
So can you tell me, is it true that cats have 9 lives?
They appear to, don't they? I think it's just because they're so flexible and alert that they do get out of trouble quite often. But whether they have 9 lives, debatable. Yeah.
And what makes cats different to other animals?
Well, there's quite a lot. If you look at a cat, you can see one thing that stands out is they're all the same size, aren't they? You know, you get huge pony dogs and you get tiny pocket dogs.
Yeah.
But with cats, you get basically slight variations, but they're basically the same size.
Oh,
yeah.
True. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what about if a cat falls from up high, is it true that they'll always land on their feet?
They do. The only time they don't is if it's not high enough. So if they go for lower ledge, they can't right themselves in time. But it was quite interesting. They do land on their feet, but the most fractures that we see in cats or broken bones is jaws, because when they land from great heights, their head knocks on the concrete or wherever they're falling from. So it's interesting.
It is.
Yeah. You don't
Poor
think.
wee things.
Yeah.
What about cats having a sixth sense?
Yeah, well, I think most animals do, and I believe cats do too. There's this nice story, which I'll tell you about when I was studying. A hospice for children with terminal cancer, and this one cat, the nurses would say, would always sleep on the bed with the child that was going to die next. Very sad. And the one boy was going to go home the next day, and they thought he was, doing much better. And the cat went and slept on this little boy Johnny's bed, and sure enough, Johnny passed away that night. So I believe there is a sixth sense. Yeah.
Seems to be. Cats always seem to know when you're upset or something too, don't they?
They always
seem to come around you.
That's right.
Why do cats sort of put, so your cat was just doing it then, their tongue towards close up the front of their mouth? You know, they sort of have their mouth open and their tongue pressing.
Oh, that's normally just after he's finished grooming as well. And also, if you look at a cat's tongue, it's like sandpaper. It's really, really rough. And it's just to help them groom themselves and get rid of all the hair, as well as get the oils. So you'll find a sick cat will look dull coat and lots of dry hair hanging around, whereas a healthy cat, like Skabenga over there, grooms himself really well.
And what is the purpose of the cat's whiskers?
Yeah, you'll notice that the cat's whiskers are always longer, that they stick out quite wide around the side of their heads. And what that does is it allows them to decide, can I fit through this little gap or not? Now what happens sometimes when children are young and don't know what they're doing, they cut the cat's whiskers and then they get stuck because they can't sense that they can't fit through. So yeah, so it definitely is, it allows them, and it's yeah, just to go through narrow.
How interesting.
Yeah.
If they get cut, do they grow back?
They do, but it takes a while, and the poor cat has a bit of trauma getting used to, you know, not being able to use that sense. So, yeah. And
I guess that's sort of like when you see cats, sometimes they have the cones on their head when they're not very well and they keep banging into things.
Yeah,
is that their whiskers are covered?
That's right, whiskers are covered and they have no sense of feeling there.
Oh,
yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
That's right. The other thing, I don't know if you've heard, is cats can see in the dark. Did you know about that?
I've heard that. Is it true?
Yeah, their pupils are basically long. They're sort of elongated like that. So what it allows the eye to make the most of light. But if you put a cat in a totally dark area with no light, not even moonlight, it's blind as a bat, just like we are. So it just makes use of the minimal light a lot better than most animals. Yeah.
And what about cats' hearing? They have a lot sharper hearing than we have, don't
Yes, they do, yeah, most animals. And if you have a look at the shape of a cat's ears, it's sort of up like that. So it funnels the sound in, and also the cats can swivel their ears around so they can hear a lot more, whereas dogs you often see, you know, when they have longer, flat ears, they don't hear as well as these guys. But it all helps in building the myth of 9 lives, keeping them alert.
Oh, true.
Yeah. So.
And what about cats with their tails? Is it usually when they're angry? Is there particular reasons why they swish their tails around?
Well, that's a good sign, and that's a good sign to teach children too, is if a cat starts swishing and you patting it, it's often a sign saying, I've had enough. Oh. So just lay off. And if you keep going, you either get bitten or attacked with the claws. Yeah. Yes. But definitely the tail is a definite sign that there's something going on that they don't like, as well as it's used for balance. When they're on trees and stuff, they also use it as a rudder almost.
Right.
To keep balance. Yeah.
How cute.
Yeah.
And what about the purpose of purring? Why do cats purr?
Well, they purr for a few reasons. The most common one that we know is they're happy. They're content and they just relax. And all it is the air pushed out across their voice box. And their bones are a bit different to ours, so it makes this noise. But cats will also purr when they are in pain. So it's often misinterpreted, oh, the cat's happy, we don't need to take it to the vet, when it is actually in pain. And what you'll notice is they normally sit hunched and purr and don't want attention. So that's also a sign to look for in an unhealthy cat. Yeah.
Interesting. Where's our little cat friend gone?
He's very inquisitive, aren't they? So he's just exploring everything. And they like to, one thing about a cat is they like to play. And often people get grumpy because, you know, they go down the curtains or ruin their carpets. And the best way is to get them a scratch pole or something like that inside, so that they know that's what they can do there. And then they're normally quite good and leave the other household furniture alone.
It's pretty good. And are cats very easy to train? Like, say, not to get on furniture and things like that. Can you train a cat very well?
You can train a cat. It takes a lot of patience and persistence. That's the main thing. Like, for example, this is Skabenga's place in our home, and she still tries it on every now and again to get on the couch or something. But as long as people or everyone in the household keeps putting onto her couch, she soon settles there because she won't get disturbed. Oh. So she gives up. And
I've never seen the likes. You're a pretty lucky cat.
Yeah.
Well, it was lovely to meet him, and thanks for your time, Sue.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm here with Dr. Sandy Cooper discussing cats a bit more in depth. So what makes cats so unique?
Mel, cats are very unique and have evolved down completely different pathways to dogs as far as everything right from the tip of their nose to the tip of their tail is quite different to dogs. And people often think that they're just small dogs, but they're not. So as far as their gastrointestinal system's concerned, they have different pathways through their liver, which mean that they're not able to metabolise the same sort of foods as dogs. And so they are complete carnivores. So feeding cats things like lots of cereals, although it might be quite cool to give them rice bubbles in the morning, they actually don't process that food very well. So the majority of their diet needs to be high quality protein.
Right. Is it true that some of the cheaper brands have got more ash in them for cat food and that they're not good for them?
Well, ash is just a breakdown of the analysis of the cat food, but if you actually look on the back of the packets, you need to look at the ingredient list, and the first 3 ingredients for really good cat food should be protein sources. They shouldn't be a lot of cereal sources, and that's really, really important as far as cat nutrition is concerned.
Oh, right. And cats seem to have weak digestive systems. Is there anything we can do to prevent them from vomiting so much?
They probably don't have so much weak digestive systems as people don't understand them, such that they're feeding incorrect foods. So again, it comes down to the fact that that primary source of food needs to be high quality protein and meat-based protein. A lot of cats are allergic to some of the proteins, and so that can cause them to vomit. So you would be looking at having to give them an anti-allergenic diet. And we have some superb products on the market. There's a special Hills ZD diet, which has totally got no allergens in it at all, so the gastrointestinal tract will not react to it. Or we can feed what we call novel proteins, which are different proteins to what the cat would have been used to. So if it's been fed on chicken, we might feed it venison instead, for example. So the gastrointestinal tract has something that's completely different. The thing is that people need to realise if they do that they've got to continue with it. So if you're excluding beef, then you need to exclude all of your beef products such as milk and things like that. Lots of people are worried about milk in cats. The reason that some cats can't process milk properly is that a lot of cats, 60% of cats, which is quite a high number, cannot digest milk because they have not got the enzymes to break down the sugar in the milk, which is lactose, is the sugar that we mainly get in milk. So they get diarrhoea because it doesn't get broken down, doesn't get absorbed, so it comes out the back end as a diarrhoea. For those cats, you can either get low lactose milk, no lactose milk is obviously better, or just feed them water, because if you're talking about the newer, really balanced, super premium foods, then they don't actually need any milk at all.
Right.
So no lactose or just water is absolutely fine.
Oh, very interesting. Can you tell us a few sort of usual complaints that cats have?
Well, one of the things that we as veterinarians need to do is check kitties really regularly, because often we pick up things before they become major problems. So for us, the annual animal health check for cats and their vaccinations and talking to clients about any problems there are, picking up problems and doing preventive medicine is just such a huge part of our job and so important. And it's really upsetting to us when we get a cat that maybe hasn't seen a vet for some time, and we see lots of problems. We know we could have prevented and saved, one, the client's money, and the cat some pain over that period of time. So preventative care is really important, but feeding them a good healthy diet, making sure their vaccinations are up to date, making sure their worming's done, defleeing, that sort of thing is just so important. And when they come in to see a veterinarian, they need to get checked from the tip of their nose to their tail, and we just check everything and go through all the concerns with the client. Unfortunately, lots of cats in the wider community aren't seen on a regular basis, and that's a real shame, because some of those cats will be suffering.
Yeah. How often should cats be coming in for checkups?
They should be coming in at least for a yearly checkup. When we're talking about elderly or geriatric cats, which would be from about probably 10 years of age on, then some of those cats will be on 3 to 6 monthly checks, because always remembering that a cat's lifespan is compacted, so for 1 year of our lives they've got 7 or 8 years, so it's really squeezed in. So if we're talking about a 3-month time frame, That time frame in our years is actually probably 2 years, close to 2 years. So in 2 years for, you know, a granny out in the community, 2 years not getting a checkup with your doctor and not getting your medicine changed or your blood pressure taken, those sorts of things are fairly important. So that's why people might think that 3 month and 6 month checkups are extreme, but they're not because of that time frame compaction.
Right. And what can we do to help, say, elderly cats that are a bit sort of weaker and thin? Is there anything we can do to make them more comfortable?
Yeah. A lot of these cats have underlying disease processes, the ones that are thin. They're often are hypothyroid, where the thyroid gland produces too much hormone. We know a lot more about blood pressure in cats just in recent years. A lot of them have got high blood pressure problems, and the high blood pressure problems and the hypothyroidism can contribute to kidney failure, which is what we used to see many years ago, but we're picking that up a lot earlier and preventing kidney damage if we're picking up that they've got high blood pressure problems, because the high blood pressure then contributes to the kidney failure. So in the past we would have seen a lot more cats with kidney failure, but because those cats are having their blood pressure problems treated, then we're not seeing the same degree of cats with kidney failure. Right. So it's nice if we can do that, and it's yeah, it's good to be able to do that.
Great. And sort of what else are cats prone to? Cancer? Is that correct? Cats get cancer?
We do get cancers. The most common cancer we see is squamous cell carcinoma, not melanomas like in humans. And if we do see melanomas, then it's not usually very malignant. The squamous cell carcinoma usually occurs on ears and noses, particularly on white cats, but redheads are prone to it too. So sometimes we've got to do radical surgery like removing the tips of their ears, taking off parts of their nose and treating that, yeah. But it can be quite difficult at times with some of these cats because they're real sunbathers. So if we see somebody with a white cat, a kitten, we'd advise them probably to keep their cat indoors for between 10 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon to try and stop the sun damage.
Oh, interesting. So are some breeds of cats more prone to diseases than others?
Probably not. I mean, some of the more exotic cats, your pure breed cats, are not going to have as long a lifespan as their normal moggies because of the inbreeding and the hybrid vigour that you get from that. But no, cats are living a lot longer with better nutrition and better health care, so that we're seeing them living 12 to 15 is average age for a cat, probably for the geriatric cat, and we see a lot of cats that are in that 15 to 20 year group, and we've got quite a few that are over 20 as well, but that's not the norm. But the cats that are between 15 and 20, a lot of them lead very healthy, well lives, and they're very loved.
Yes, aren't they? How important is it to neuter cats?
It's very, very important to neuter cats, particularly tomcats. The male cat, they become dirty, obnoxious, wandering pets, especially in an urban environment. They're prone to picking up every disease that goes, and because of their tomcatting behaviour they do get the cat AIDS virus, and we've got a cat in here at the moment that's really ill. It's 2 years old, an unneutered male, and it's got cat AIDS. It's covered in fleas, and it's been out there having a whale of a time but picking up every disease that goes, and it will be busy obviously infecting any female cats that it mates with the AIDS virus. So I mean, it's important that we do neuter them. Every litter of kittens should be a loved and wanted litter, so that we can get them lovely homes rather than being dumped or ending up at the SPCA. So if you're not wanting to breed from a cat, it's important that you do neuter them. The really good time is between 5 and 6 months of age. The reason for that is we get less behaviour problems if we neuter them early at that stage. We don't see them spraying, getting in so many fisticuffs too. So there's a fairly critical 4-week period that's the ideal age, but we can neuter them at any age. And I've neutered a tomcat that was about 8 or 9 years of age once years ago. And the lady sent me a Christmas card with a photo in the following year to show me how glossy and lovely he looked, because he looked really poxy and revolting before that. So I mean, in an urban environment, they get into scraps. They go away for weeks, and they're smelly and yucky, and they get abscesses, and they just look terrible. Neuter them, and they look fabulous, and they're much better, nicer pets.
Very interesting. Thank you for that, Dr. Sandy Cooper.
That's fine. Thanks, Mel.
We're here at the Panda cattery with Denise, who's the owner. How are you, Denise?
I'm fine, thank you, Mel. How are you?
Good. I've never been to a cattery before. It's a pretty interesting looking place. Can you tell us a bit of the background of your cattery?
Well, we've been here for 16 years, but my parents had the cattery for 30 years in Black Road, so 46 years we've been going.
Gee, so you must know a bit about cats by now.
Well, I've grown up with them, yes.
This one here, what? It looks like a bit of a climbing cat. What breed of cat are these?
They're Tonkinese.
Oh, right.
Yes, they're very agile, good climbers, very people orientated, very affectionate cats.
Are they?
Yes.
They're interesting looking.
Yes.
Shall we have a bit of a wander and look through at some of the cats as we go? This one here's got an interesting looking wee face on him. Is that just your everyday?
Yeah, that's Tessa. She's just, well, she's a moggy really, but she's a long-haired tortoiseshell.
And with the long hair, do they need much more grooming?
Some of the domestic long hairs don't knot up all that much. I mean, you know, just a quick groom maybe twice a week is all they need.
Yeah.
And, you know, you keep them really nice. So they don't knot up as much as the Persians and some of the pedigree cats.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you find most cats are able to get the knots out themselves? Or they need assistance?
They do need assistance, yeah. But they use, when they lose their winter coat to get their summer coat, and when they lose their summer coat to get the winter coat, the new coat coming in underneath, that's when they knot up.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting, isn't it? What about this wee man over here?
That's Charlie. He's just a domestic black cat. He's a lovely old boy too.
So what sort of people do you find usually drop their cats off to catteries?
Well, from all walks of life really. I mean, you know, well, it's sort of hard to answer.
How adaptable do you find the cats coming into a new
Most
environment?
of the cats settle in very well. There's the odd one or two that doesn't. Some do fret, but most of them do settle in very well once they've been coming a few times and they get used to us and get used to our routine and realise that, you know, that they've got someone that's going to feed them and they've got somewhere to warm and sleep, they're fine.
Right. We'll keep walking along and see if we can spy a few more in some of these cages. What do you find, which breed of cat are the best natured?
The best natured cats? I would say the best natured would be the Burmans and Burmese and just the old moggy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you got any more cats in cages lurking around anywhere?
What about... Do you want me to let her out?
Yeah, let's let her out. What about yourself? What sort of cats do you have?
I've got two cats of my own, just a... they're both, one's long-haired and one's short-haired. Hello, Toodles. Hello, Toodles. How
do you remember which ones which with so many roaming around?
Well, I liken myself to a school teacher in a classroom. I mean, you know, the school teachers get to know their children and we get to know our boarders.
That's probably quite a good way of looking at it.
Yes, yeah.
So how much care do you think, on average, you need to give these cats?
A care in the cattery or care in the home?
Care in the cattery.
We clean them out in the morning and everything gets changed in the morning, all their litter trays and food bowls. We give them dry food in the morning and wet food at night if that's what they have. A lot of cats now are being fed on the dry food.
Right.
And if they're fed on the premium quality foods, you know, it's a good balance. It gives them a good balance.
Oh, right. So do some cats come in with certain dietary requests?
Yes, they do. We get a lot of cats that are on prescription diets for health reasons. We get a lot of obese cats that are on diet food. Yes, yeah.
Do you? Oh.
Well, I mean, you know, mum and dad at home spoil them, so they put on weight quite quickly and then they have to go onto the diet foods.
Right. So do all the cats get to come out and have a bit of a stroll around during the day?
Yeah, when we haven't got many in like this, yes, we can let them all out during the day to have a wee run round so that they can get out into the outdoor enclosures and have a bit of a play like these two are doing. Yeah.
So what is it that you particularly like so much about cats?
Well, I mean, I've been brought up with them, so I just like cats. You have to if you're doing a job like this. You can't not like them because they sense that you don't like them. Yeah, and if you have a fear, well, they'll sense that as well.
Really? Yeah. Mm. How important is it for cats to be stimulated?
It is important for them to be stimulated. Mickey behind you is, he's been in with me since November last year, so we try to give them as much freedom as we can. Right. And give them toys and that to play with. I mean, as you can see, I've got this. Well, I look a bit silly, but I go up and down the corridor here waving it about, and he'll chase after me with it and jump up at it, you know, to sort of, it's just to give him the freedom and the space to be a normal cat, really. As you can see, the Tonkinese are climbers.
Gee, aren't they? That's incredible. Mm. I've seen other Tonkinese cats before and they were pairs. They usually come in pairs a lot more.
I think it's a good idea if you're going to have a Burmese or a Tonkinese to have them in pairs, because they are company-orientated cats and they play off each other if you've got, you know, if they're playing about and things. So
it's almost like a rodent.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't say that about the cats.
They are inclined to look a bit ratty when they're kittens.
I bet they are.
Yeah, but they are lovely. Yeah.
I've got this wee one here.
It's all right, Missy.
And do you find some breeds, obviously, they meow more than others?
Yes, the Burmese can be quite vocal. The Siamese are vocal. And some of the other Orientals are quite vocal, but
right.
You know, it all depends on the situation. I mean, a lot of them interact with their owners backwards and forwards. Yeah.
Yes. Mm. What about each other?
Yeah, well, the meows that the cats have are all different and they all mean different things, but they don't really meow with each other. I mean, you know, they don't sort of have conversations like we do, but it's all body language with a cat.
Right. Mm. Oh, it's very interesting. What about these wee ones up here? So what would you say the most common cat?
Tabbies are very common.
Right.
The old black cats are, you know, black cats there. There's a lot of black cats. These are tabbies.
Yeah.
They're from the same litter. They're litter mates.
They do look very similar, those two, don't they?
Mm. But they're lovely wee cats. Very much loved.
And this wee one here is a wee tortoiseshell?
This wee girl, Purdy, she's a lovely wee girl. She's 18 now. And she got caught in a gin trap. Oh. The old possum traps, yeah. That's why she's got one front leg missing. Ooh. And I get quite a few three-legged cats in that have been caught in gin traps or been hit by cars or whatever and have survived, luckily. And they manage very, very well.
We had a cat once, the tail had to get chopped off because it got caught in something and it seemed to still quiver, so it almost get phantom pain still. Do you get many cats with chopped off tails?
Yes, yeah, I have a few cats that come in that have had their tails amputated or for one reason or another because they've got them caught somewhere or they've been in a cat fight and it's got abscessed and has damaged the nerves in the tail, and you know they've amputated them for that particular reason. You get the Manx cats, of course, which have got no tails, and the Japanese bobtails, and they've got a stump about that big. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? Can you tell me what would be a few lasting tips for cat care you'd leave us with?
Well, care-wise, I mean, if you've got a moggy cat, I mean, as long as you feed them a quality food, keep them wormed, make sure the vaccinations are up to date. All cats like being groomed. You don't have to have a comb. You can have a slicker brush with a short-haired cat. They really like that. Right. It stimulates their skin and their coat, and if you're grooming them regularly, you can see if there's any injuries or, you know, if they're sore or anything, and you can get them to the vet and get them checked out.
Great. Well, it's been very interesting being here with you at your cattery today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Denise.
Thank you.
What an interesting time today we've had with all these cats. You'll be watching the Certificate of Basic Animal Care Science. You'll have to join us next week when we look at dogs. We'll see you then.